The small diner sat quietly on the corner of a busy street, its windows fogged with the smell of fresh coffee and sizzling bacon. Inside, the air was warm, filled with the chatter of customers and the clinking of dishes. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other, where the waitress smiled at regulars and remembered their favorite orders. Life here moved slowly, simply, and honestly, which was why people came back again and again. She moved quickly between tables, balancing plates of food, mugs of coffee, and a warm, welcoming smile. She didn't just serve food. She served attention, kindness, and care. Behind her eyes were stories most people didn't see. The late nights, the bills she worried about, the dreams she carried quietly. Life had never been easy. Every morning she woke up before the sun, tying her hair back, pulling on her apron, and stepping into the small worn shoes that carried her through the endless hours. She did this not for glory or fame, but because life demanded it, and because she wanted to keep her family fed, clothed, and above all, hopeful. That day felt ordinary at first. The diner was humming with its usual rhythm. A man in a worn leather jacket sipped his coffee at the counter. A young couple shared pancakes in the corner, and the bell above the door jingled now and then as more customers walked in. She moved between them all, her energy steady, her focus absolute. She noticed little things, a spilled cup of sugar, a napkin that had fallen, the nervous fidget of a small boy sitting with his father. The boy sat quietly in his high chair, struggling with his food. His small hands trembled slightly as he tried to lift a spoonful of mashed potatoes. A napkin smeared on his face, a few drops of gravy fell to the table, and his tiny lips puckered in frustration. Most people would glance over, perhaps sigh or offer a sympathetic look before returning to their meals. But she saw him. Not just the struggle, but the effort, the courage, and the frustration behind his eyes. Without a second thought, she walked over. She knelt beside the high chair, placing her hand gently over his small one, guiding the spoon with careful patience. "Here, let's try this together," she said softly. Her voice was calm, comforting, steady. She didn't rush him, didn't scold, didn't show impatience. She simply helped, spoonful by spoonful, making the small act feel like a dance. The father watched quietly from across the table. He was a man used to power, wealth, and control, yet here in this simple diner, he felt something unfamiliar, something raw. He had seen doctors, nurses, therapists, and countless people who worked with children like his son. Yet none had the warmth, patience, and genuine care he was seeing now. This was more than skill. This was heart. He observed how she laughed gently with the boy when he finally managed to take a bite, how she wiped the corner of his mouth without fuss, and how she looked at him not as a task or responsibility, but as a person. For the first time in a long while, the father felt a quiet, unexpected gratitude. It wasn't about money or power or influence. It was about seeing someone care deeply, sincerely, without expectation or reward. The boy's eyes sparkled, and a small giggle escaped him. He leaned into her, trusting her guidance. In that small, fleeting moment, the diner faded away, and only the connection between them remained. She didn't know who his father was, and it didn't matter. There were no judgments, no social divides, only kindness. Once he had finished, she stood, brushing her hands lightly over her apron. "All done," she said with a gentle smile, and the boy clapped his small hands, delighted. His laughter was contagious, and the father found himself smiling too, though he didn't understand fully why. She returned to her duties, carrying trays, refilling drinks, and checking on other tables. But the father's eyes followed her. He was struck by something deeper than curiosity. He was struck by humanity, the kind of humanity that money could not buy, that titles could not command, and that status could not define. Here was someone living a life of simplicity, yet overflowing with something far richer. For her, this was just another day, another meal, another customer. But for the father, this moment lingered, embedding itself quietly in his mind. He began to notice other things, how she remembered which customers liked extra sugar, which preferred no onions, how she managed a crowded floor with grace, how she found small moments to bring comfort and joy to people who might otherwise be overlooked. She moved with a rhythm born of years of experience, yet there was also spontaneity in her kindness. She didn't perform acts of care for recognition. She did them because it mattered. Because the world, small as it was in this diner, deserved her attention and empathy. The father thought about his own life, the wealth he had accumulated, the empire he controlled, the countless people who worked for him, and yet he realized he had rarely paused to see the small, simple acts that truly made life meaningful. Here was a woman with nothing but dedication, patience, and a warm heart, doing more good in a single hour than he had in years. As the lunch rush began to fade, he finally approached her. "Can I ask you something?" he said cautiously. She looked up, wiping her hands on her apron, and nodded. There was no pretension in her gaze, no assumption, only curiosity. "How do you do it?" he asked. "How do you manage to care so much even when it's hard?" She shrugged lightly, a humble gesture. "I just see people. I see what they need. I do what I can. It's not about being perfect. It's about being there, even in small ways." Her words struck him. They were simple, honest, and powerful. He thought about the doctors, the specialists, the consultants he had relied on, and realized none of them had moved him the way she had. It wasn't education or skill alone, it was compassion, genuine and unshakable. He watched her return to the floor, tending to a customer with the same care and attention, and he felt a quiet admiration grow within him. He had come to this diner for a meal, perhaps to pass the time with his son, yet he was leaving with something far more valuable, a lesson in humanity, humility, and kindness. For her, life would continue in its familiar rhythm. Long hours, hard work, and endless care for those around her. But for him, this was the beginning of something different. A realization that real value was not measured in wealth, titles, or possessions, but in the way one treated others, in the acts of love, patience, and attention that made someone's life a little easier, a little brighter. As they left the diner later that afternoon, the father couldn't stop thinking about her. He had seen many impressive people in his life, but he had never met anyone like her, someone whose life, though ordinary on the surface, carried extraordinary meaning. And he knew deep down that he wanted to make sure her story didn't end in struggle, but began a new chapter, one where her kindness, patience, and courage could be recognized and rewarded. He didn't know yet how or when or what form it would take, but he knew one thing. He could not forget the way she had cared for his son, a way no money or influence could replicate. It was a simple act, a moment of love and attention, but it had left an imprint on his life that would never fade. And for the first time in a long time, he felt a stirring of hope, not just for himself or his son, but for the world, and for the possibility that people like her could change it in ways even he had never imagined. After that day in the diner, the billionaire father couldn't stop thinking about the waitress. Every time he remembered her gentle care for his son, her patience and her warm smile, he felt a mixture of admiration and curiosity. He had seen many people in his life, successful, talented, and accomplished, but none had made an impression like she did. There was something different about her, something genuine, unpretentious, and quietly powerful. He found himself wondering about her life. What did she do when the diner closed? How did she manage the challenges she must face every day? What dreams did she carry quietly, tucked away behind her long hours and constant work? Questions he had never asked about anyone before began to occupy his mind. For her, life continued at the same relentless pace. She woke early each morning, preparing breakfast for her younger siblings, packing lunches, and ensuring her parents had what they needed for the day. Then she rushed to the diner, tying her apron, and stepping into the rhythm of orders, dishes, and the countless little moments that required care. Life was tiring, often frustrating, but she had learned to carry it with grace. She didn't complain because she knew that no one could fight her battles for her. She did what she could every day in the way she could, but that day the encounter lingered in her mind too. She remembered the man watching her son, noticing the way she helped him eat. She couldn't quite place why, but something about the way he looked at her felt different. It wasn't judgment or curiosity, it was respect, genuine and quiet. And while she returned to her work without thinking much about it, a small part of her felt seen, truly seen for the first time in a long while. A few days later, the diner was unusually busy. Families filled the booths and the smell of fresh bread and coffee floated through the air. She moved between tables, serving with the same patience and energy as always. That's when she noticed him again, the father and his son. They had returned, quietly slipping into a corner booth. Her heart lifted slightly, knowing she would help the boy eat once more, unaware of the effect her simple actions had on the father. As she approached the table, she greeted them warmly, a smile that had become second nature. She helped the boy with his meal, guiding his hand, laughing gently when he made a small mess and offering praise for every tiny success. She did not rush, did not scold, only encouraged and supported him. The father watched her closely. This time he noticed more. He noticed how she interacted with other customers, how she managed the chaos of the busy diner without losing her calm. He noticed how she treated everyone with kindness, even those who were rude or impatient. And he realized that what he had seen the first day was not a rare moment. It was her way of living. Her compassion, patience, and strength were consistent, woven into the very fabric of who she was. After the meal, he found himself lingering at the table, wanting to speak to her, to understand her story, to know how a person could carry such grace and warmth in a world that often demanded toughness and selfishness. When the diner began to quiet down, he finally called her over. "Can I ask you something?" he said, his voice quieter this time. She approached, still catching her breath from the rush of serving. "Of course," she replied politely, brushing her hair behind her ear. "I want to know more about you," he said. "Not just about what you do here, but about your life, your dreams, your challenges. How do you manage to stay kind, patient, and strong every day?" She blinked, slightly surprised. Most people never asked about her life. They saw a waitress, a worker, someone providing a service. But here was a man genuinely interested in her as a person. She hesitated for a moment, unsure if she should share, but something in his eyes encouraged honesty. "I don't know if it's anything special," she said softly. "I just do what I can. My family depends on me. We don't have much, but we try. I work long hours, but it's not just about money. It's about helping others, being patient, and doing my best even when it's hard. That's all I can do." Her words were simple, but they carried depth and resilience. The father listened carefully, realizing that she had been facing challenges he could scarcely imagine. Yet she had not given up. She had chosen to carry responsibility with dignity, to act with kindness even when life demanded toughness, and to find strength in compassion. He asked gently about her family, learning that she helped care for younger siblings and that her parents were aging and relied on her support. She shared stories of her struggles to pay bills, to keep the family afloat, and to maintain hope despite the hardships. The father felt a deep respect growing within him. Here was someone who had no obligation to the world beyond herself, yet she devoted her energy to others, lifting those around her without seeking recognition or reward. The waitress, in turn, began to notice something about the father. He was attentive, not imposing, genuinely interested in her story. She noticed that he didn't speak with authority or superiority. He listened, asked questions, and treated her as an equal, which was rare in her experience. Most people with wealth or power assumed they were above her, but he didn't. He treated her humanity with respect, and that alone made her feel valued. Over the next few weeks, their interactions continued. Sometimes he would stop by the diner unexpectedly, quietly observing, learning more about her. She didn't know he was wealthy, and it didn't matter. He didn't make her feel judged or obligated. He simply watched, learning from her patience, her empathy, and the way she carried herself. He began to understand something crucial. That kindness, humility, and courage were more powerful than wealth, influence, or control. The waitress, without knowing it, was teaching him lessons he had never learned in boardrooms or luxury offices. Her life, though filled with struggle, was a testament to the strength of the human spirit. One day, during a quieter moment at the diner, he asked her a more personal question. "Have you ever thought about what you want for your future?" he asked. "Not just for tomorrow, but for the next few years, your dreams, your goals, your hopes?" She paused, considering. Most people had stopped asking her such questions long ago. Most people assumed her life was defined by work and responsibility. But here he was asking her to think beyond survival, to imagine possibilities. I want to help people," she said finally. "I want to make a difference even in small ways. I don't know exactly how, but I want to do something meaningful, something that matters." The father nodded slowly. He could see the spark of potential, the desire to rise above circumstances and leave a positive mark on the world. He realized that she had been doing that all along, quietly and without recognition, but she deserved more. She deserved an opportunity to grow, to use her gifts on a larger scale, and to live a life where her compassion could reach far beyond the walls of the diner. He left that day with a plan forming in his mind. He didn't yet know how he would approach her, how he would offer help without making her feel obligated or uncomfortable. But he knew one thing. Her life had touched him in a way that nothing else had. He wanted to make sure her story didn't end in struggle. He wanted to give her the chance to shine, to use her kindness and intelligence to change lives. Not just the lives of those in the diner, but the lives of many others. For the waitress, life continued as it always had, but a subtle shift had begun. She felt noticed, appreciated and valued in a way she hadn't in years. Small moments of reflection made her consider what more she could do, what she could achieve if circumstances allowed. Though she didn't know it yet, the father's presence in her life was the first ripple of change that would grow into a wave capable of transforming everything. Even her colleagues noticed a difference. She moved with a slightly lighter step, smiled more freely, and seemed more confident in her decisions. It wasn't an obvious change, no grand gestures, but it was there, subtle and genuine. Kindness, after all, is contagious, and when someone notices your value, it often awakens a quiet strength you didn't know you possessed. The father, watching from a distance, felt the same sense of anticipation. He knew that the right moment would come to speak with her, to offer an opportunity that could change her life forever. But for now, he observed, learning, understanding, and appreciating the woman who had reminded him of what truly mattered. In the quiet of that diner, amidst the clatter of dishes and the hum of conversations, a story was quietly unfolding. A story of connection, of empathy, and of the subtle, powerful ways humans touch each other's lives. One act of care, one moment of kindness had begun to ripple outward, shaping futures and planting the seeds of change. And neither of them yet realized how profound that change would be. The days passed quietly, but the billionaire father could not stop thinking about the waitress. Every time he recalled her gentle care for his son, her patience and her warmth, he felt an urge to do something meaningful for her. He knew that life had been hard for her, that she had struggled for years to make ends meet while caring for her family. And now he wanted to give her a chance to live a life that reflected her worth, her courage, and her kindness. It wasn't easy to approach her. He had to think carefully. He didn't want to overwhelm her or make her feel obligated. He didn't want his wealth to intimidate her or make her feel uncomfortable. He wanted her to see it not as charity, but as an opportunity, a chance to use her talents, compassion, and intelligence in a bigger way. Finally, one afternoon, he returned to the diner. It was a slow day, with only a few customers scattered across the booths. She was wiping tables, humming softly, moving with her usual energy. He asked her if she could spare a few minutes to step outside for a walk. She hesitated, wiping her hands on her apron, but agreed. There was something gentle in his request. Something that suggested he truly wanted to speak to her as a person, not just a waitress. They walked along the small street behind the diner, where the sounds of traffic faded into quiet hums. He spoke first, choosing his words carefully. "I've been thinking about you," he said, "and the way you care for people even when it's difficult. I want to ask if you would consider an opportunity, a chance to take on something new, something bigger than this diner, and make a difference for more people than you can imagine." The waitress blinked, surprised. "Me?" she asked softly. I don't know if I can. I've never done anything like that before." He smiled gently. "I know it's unfamiliar and it may feel overwhelming. But I see in you qualities that can't be taught: kindness, patience, courage, and intelligence. You inspire people around you. I believe that with guidance and support, you could achieve more than you even realize." She looked down at her shoes, unsure. She had spent her life struggling, surviving, helping her family. But the idea of stepping into a new world, one filled with opportunities, responsibility, and unfamiliar challenges, frightened her. I'm not sure," she admitted. "I've only ever worked at the diner. I don't know if I'm ready for something bigger. I'm afraid I might fail." He shook his head gently. "I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking you to try, to grow, and to let yourself explore your potential. You don't have to do it alone. I'll be here to guide you, and I want you to make decisions for yourself. This is about your life, your growth, and the chance to create something meaningful." She took a deep breath, considering his words. It wasn't just an offer of work, it was a vote of confidence, a recognition of her value, something she had rarely experienced. She thought about her family, about the struggles they faced and the possibilities this could bring. Slowly, a spark of hope began to grow inside her. Perhaps, just perhaps, she could step into a new chapter of her life. Over the next few weeks, she began to explore the opportunity. The billionaire father introduced her to his world carefully, showing her that the skills she already had, empathy, patience, determination, and problem-solving, were more than enough to succeed. She learned to manage responsibilities on a larger scale, to make decisions that impacted more people, and to inspire others with the same warmth and compassion she had shown in the diner. At first, it was challenging. She faced doubts, fear, and moments of uncertainty. She wondered if she truly belonged in this new world, a world of meetings, planning, and people who had never known struggle like hers. There were days when she felt overwhelmed, unsure if she could meet the expectations before her. But each time she remembered why she had taken this step, the desire to make a difference, not just for herself but for her family. And for those who might never have a chance otherwise, the father never pressured her. Instead, he became a mentor, quietly guiding her, answering questions, and encouraging her when she doubted herself. He treated her as an equal, listening to her ideas, respecting her opinions, and showing that leadership was not about control, but about collaboration, understanding, and trust. She started to see herself in a new light. The woman who had once only seen the struggles of daily survival now realized she had talents, intelligence, and a heart capable of inspiring change. She began to believe that she could lead, that she could create opportunities for others, and that her past struggles did not define her future. They had prepared her for it. As she settled into her new role, she also began to make small changes in the lives of others. She hired people who had faced similar hardships, giving them a chance to prove themselves. She implemented programs to help families in need, offering guidance, mentorship, and support. The impact of her actions rippled outward, touching more lives than she could have imagined. Her family noticed the changes too. They were proud of her growth, and their own lives began to improve as a result. They had always seen her as strong, but now they saw her as someone capable of shaping the future, not just surviving in it. Her siblings felt inspired, her parents felt hope, and even her friends began to see the possibilities that lay ahead when someone believed in themselves. Through it all, the father continued to watch quietly, satisfied with her progress. He had seen many people in his life, but none had moved him like she had. He realized that wealth and power were not the most important things in life. True value was measured in character, in empathy, and in the courage to make a difference. She had all of that in abundance, and he felt proud to support her journey. One day, as they walked through a new community center she had helped create, she paused to take in the changes around her. Families were receiving support, children were learning and playing, and the atmosphere was filled with hope and possibility. She smiled, realizing that her efforts were creating a lasting impact, a ripple of kindness and care that would continue long after she was gone. "I never imagined this," she said quietly to the father, who walked beside her. "I never thought I could do something like this, make a difference on this scale." He nodded, smiling. "You had it in you all along. I just helped you see it. Your heart, your dedication, your courage, they were always your greatest tools. You've only just begun to discover what you can accomplish." Her confidence grew with each passing day. She learned to trust herself, to take risks, and to lead with compassion. She discovered that the world was full of possibilities for those willing to act with integrity, patience, and determination. The small waitress who had once served tables in a quiet diner was now a woman who could inspire change, touch lives, and create a future filled with hope for many others. And yet, she never forgot her beginnings. She continued to visit the diner occasionally, not as a worker, but as someone who remembered where she came from. She greeted old customers with warmth, shared stories of her journey, and reminded herself that true success was measured not by wealth or titles, but by the lives she could touch with kindness and courage. The father watched this transformation with quiet satisfaction. He had given her an opportunity, but she had taken it and made it her own. She had not only changed her life, but was changing the lives of countless others. And in the process, he learned something profound as well, that sometimes the greatest impact one can have is to recognize potential in someone else and provide them the chance to grow. Through her journey, she also maintained her connection with his son. She continued to care for him with the same patience and warmth, that had first drawn his father's attention. Their bond deepened, built on trust, kindness, and shared joy. It reminded everyone involved that small acts of love and attention could ripple into something much larger, shaping lives in ways that could never have been predicted. The path was not without challenges. She faced setbacks, doubts, and moments when the weight of responsibility felt heavy. But each time she remembered why she had taken this step, the desire to help, to make a difference, and to honor the person who had believed in her when few others did. And each time, she found the strength to continue, to grow, and to persevere. By the end of this stage of her journey, she had transformed from a quiet, hard-working waitress into a confident, capable leader. Her compassion, patience, and courage had become the foundation of a larger mission, one that touched lives far beyond what she could have imagined. And through it all, she remained humble, kind, and true to herself, a reminder that greatness is not defined by wealth or power, but by the heart and spirit with which one approaches life. Taking on the new role was both exciting and challenging for her. What had started as an opportunity to make a difference now demanded more than she had ever imagined. There were meetings to attend, plans to create, people to guide, and decisions that carried real weight. At first, the magnitude of it all felt overwhelming. She often stayed awake at night, thinking about whether she was doing the right thing, whether she could manage the responsibilities, and whether she could live up to the trust placed in her. Despite the uncertainty, she never lost the qualities that had first caught the billionaire father's attention: her compassion, patience, and integrity. She realized that those qualities were not just helpful in the diner. They were essential in this new environment. She learned quickly that leadership was not about giving orders or demanding results. It was about listening, understanding, and inspiring people to give their best. She approached every challenge with the same patience she had once shown to her customers, remembering that behind every problem there were people who needed guidance, support, and encouragement. Her first major challenge came when she was asked to lead a project aimed at helping struggling families in the community. It was a big responsibility with resources, staff, and deadlines to manage. At first, she doubted herself. She worried that she might make mistakes, that she might disappoint the people counting on her, and that she might fail to deliver results. But then she reminded herself of how far she had already come. She thought about the years she had spent working tirelessly at the diner, caring for her family and helping others whenever she could. If she could handle that, surely she could handle this. She threw herself into the project with determination. She met with staff, listened to their ideas, and encouraged them to share their thoughts openly. She spent hours planning, organizing, and finding solutions to problems that seemed impossible at first. She made mistakes along the way, but she treated them as opportunities to learn and grow, rather than as reasons to give up. Slowly, the project began to take shape. Families received support, children had access to education and care, and the community started to see positive changes. One of the hardest lessons she learned was that leadership often required tough decisions. Not everyone agreed with her ideas, and some people resisted change. There were moments when she felt frustrated, wondering if she was doing the right thing. But she reminded herself of why she had started this journey: to make a difference, to help others, and to use her skills and compassion to create something meaningful. Each challenge became a test of her patience, creativity, and resilience. Through it all, the billionaire father remained a quiet guide. He didn't tell her what to do or how to do it. Instead, he offered advice when she asked, shared his experiences, and reminded her to trust herself. He treated her as a partner, respecting her decisions and valuing her insights. His support gave her confidence, but she also learned to rely on her own judgment. She realized that she didn't need someone to hold her hand. She had everything she needed inside her. As the project progressed, she began to see the impact of her work. Families who had struggled for years now had access to resources and support. Children who had faced challenges in school were now learning and thriving. People who had felt overlooked and forgotten were now being seen and valued. Every small success reminded her that her efforts mattered, and every smile she received from someone whose life had improved strengthened her resolve. Her growth did not go unnoticed. The staff began to trust her, colleagues respected her, and community members looked to her as a source of guidance and inspiration. She had transformed from someone who had simply survived life's challenges into a leader who could help others navigate their own difficulties. Her compassion, once shown only to a few, was now creating a ripple effect, touching the lives of countless people. Despite her growing responsibilities, she never lost her sense of humility. She continued to remember the days at the diner, the long hours and the small acts of kindness that had defined her early life. She made time to visit her family, ensuring that they were cared for and supported. She remained grounded, never allowing her new role to make her forget where she came from or the values that had shaped her. One afternoon, she faced a particularly difficult challenge. A family that had been relying on the program she was running had encountered an unexpected crisis. The father had lost his job, the mother was sick, and the children were struggling at school. The situation was complicated, and it required quick thinking, careful planning, and deep empathy. She spent hours listening to the family's concerns, coordinating support, and finding solutions that would provide stability and hope. By the end of the day, she had found a way to help, and the family left with renewed confidence and gratitude. That day reminded her of why she had taken this path. The work was hard, often exhausting, and sometimes discouraging. But the rewards, seeing lives change, witnessing hope restored, and knowing that she had made a difference, were priceless. She realized that true leadership was not measured by titles or recognition, but by the positive impact one could create in the lives of others. Her journey was also shaping her personally. She had learned to manage stress, to make decisions under pressure, and to navigate complex situations with grace. She had developed confidence in her abilities, trusting that she could handle whatever challenges came her way. And she had learned that true success was not about wealth, power, or status, but about using one's skills and heart to make a meaningful difference. The billionaire father continued to watch her progress with quiet pride. He had seen many people succeed in life, but few had inspired him the way she had. She had not only embraced the opportunity he had given her, but had transformed it into something far greater than he had imagined. Her growth, resilience, and compassion were shaping a future that would touch countless lives. Through it all, she remained connected to his son. She continued to care for him with patience and warmth, building a bond that went beyond the professional. Her guidance and attention helped him grow, learn, and experience joy in ways that were meaningful and lasting. The father noticed this, feeling grateful not only for her professional achievements but for the personal impact she had on his son's life. As months passed, she began to take on even bigger responsibilities. She led new initiatives, created programs for education and health, and helped establish a support network for families in need. Her work was making a real difference, and the community began to see her as a beacon of hope and compassion. People respected her not just for her accomplishments, but for the way she treated others with dignity, patience, and kindness. Despite the growing pressure and responsibilities, she remained humble and focused on what mattered most: helping people. She continued to listen, to care, and to inspire, showing that leadership was not about authority or recognition, but about service, empathy, and integrity. Every challenge she faced became an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to make a positive impact. Her journey was not without personal challenges. There were moments of doubt, fatigue, and fear. She questioned whether she was doing enough, whether she could continue to manage the demands, and whether her efforts were truly making a difference. But each time she faced these moments, she remembered why she had started. She remembered the lives she was touching, the people she was helping, and the hope she was restoring. And with that reminder, she found the strength to continue. Through her work, she also inspired others. People who had once struggled to find their place in the world began to see possibilities. They learned that with determination, compassion, and courage, they too could make a difference. Her example showed that one person acting with integrity and heart could change the lives of many. The billionaire father, observing her growth, realized that the impact of his decision to trust her had far exceeded his expectations. He had given her an opportunity, but she had taken it and transformed it into something extraordinary. She had not only changed her own life, but had created a ripple effect that would touch countless others. In the quiet moments, when she reflected on her journey, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had overcome fear, embraced challenges, and discovered her true potential. She had learned that life's greatest rewards were not material, but found in the joy of helping others. in the satisfaction of making a difference, and in the knowledge that her efforts had meaning. As she looked toward the future, she knew that her journey was far from over. There would be new challenges, new responsibilities, and new opportunities to make a difference. But she felt ready. She had grown stronger, wiser, and more confident. She had learned that true leadership came from the heart, and that with compassion, patience, and determination, she could face anything. And through it all, she remained grounded, remembering the small diner, the countless meals served, and the simple acts of kindness that had started it all. She knew that her success was not just about her own efforts, but about the people who had believed in her, supported her, and inspired her along the way. By now, her life had changed in ways she could never have imagined. What had started as a single quiet act of kindness, helping a boy eat at a diner, had grown into something far greater than she could have ever dreamed. She had become a leader, a source of inspiration, and a force for change in her community. Yet despite all the responsibilities, the achievements, and the recognition, she remained grounded, humble, and true to herself. Every morning she woke with purpose, thinking about how she could make the day better for the people around her. She had developed programs for education, healthcare, and family support, and each one was beginning to bear fruit. Families who had once struggled were finding stability. Children who had once felt lost were learning and growing, and individuals who had once felt overlooked were discovering their own potential. She realized that the impact of her work extended far beyond what she had first imagined. Her connection with the billionaire father had also grown stronger. He had become not only a mentor but a true friend, someone she could rely on for guidance, advice, and encouragement. He never sought to control her or impose his will. Instead, he respected her decisions, supported her growth, and celebrated her achievements. Together, they formed a partnership built on mutual respect, trust, and shared vision. One afternoon, as they walked through a new community center she had helped establish, she paused to take in the changes around her. Children played in safe spaces, parents attended workshops, and families received counseling and support. She could see the joy on the faces of those whose lives had been touched by her work, and a deep sense of fulfillment filled her heart. It was a moment of quiet triumph, a reminder that her efforts truly mattered. Yet, even as she celebrated these accomplishments, she faced new challenges. Leading multiple programs, managing staff, and addressing the needs of the community was not easy. There were times when she felt overwhelmed, exhausted, and unsure if she could continue. But each time doubt crept in, she reminded herself why she had started. She thought about the boy in the diner, the family who had struggled to survive, and the countless individuals whose lives were improving because of her efforts. Those reminders gave her strength, renewed her purpose, and kept her moving forward. Her leadership style had evolved, shaped by the lessons she had learned along the way. She discovered that true leadership was not about giving orders or seeking recognition, but about listening, understanding, and inspiring others. She treated every member of her team with respect, valued their contributions, and encouraged them to grow. She realized that her own growth was tied to the growth of the people around her, and that by lifting others, she was also lifting herself. The community began to notice the difference she was making. People spoke of her compassion, her patience, and her unwavering dedication. They admired her ability to remain calm under pressure, to find solutions to problems that seemed impossible, and to inspire hope in those who had long given up on it. Her story became a source of encouragement for others, showing that one person, acting with integrity and kindness, could change the lives of many. Despite her success, she never forgot the small moments that had started it all. She continued to visit the diner occasionally, sharing her journey with the people who had once been her daily companions. She laughed with old customers, remembered their favorite orders, and reminded herself of the value of simple human connections. Those moments grounded her, keeping her humble and connected to the values that had shaped her from the beginning. One of the most rewarding parts of her journey was her relationship with the billionaire father's son. She continued to care for him with patience, warmth, and genuine attention, helping him grow, learn, and experience joy. Their bond had deepened, and she took pride in seeing him thrive, knowing that her presence had a positive and lasting impact on his life. The father often observed them together, feeling grateful that someone with such a kind heart and steady presence had entered their lives. Over time, she began to mentor others who were starting their own journeys of change. She shared her experiences, guided newcomers through challenges, and encouraged them to trust themselves. She emphasized the importance of empathy, patience, and integrity, teaching that true success was measured not by wealth or status, but by the positive difference one could make in the lives of others. Her work inspired a ripple effect. People who had once struggled to find their place in the world now had opportunities to thrive. Families who had been facing hardship found support and stability. Communities that had felt overlooked and forgotten began to experience hope and progress. And throughout it all, she remained a guiding presence, showing that one person's determination, kindness, and courage could create change far beyond what they could see. There were moments when she reflected on how far she had come. She thought about the long hours at the diner, the struggles of her family, and the small acts of kindness that had first defined her life. She realized that those early experiences had prepared her for this journey, teaching her resilience, patience, and empathy. The very challenges she had faced as a waitress had become the foundation of her strength as a leader. Her relationship with the billionaire father continued to deepen in a unique way. He admired not just her accomplishments, but her character, the way she remained humble, thoughtful, and caring even as her responsibilities grew. He often reflected on the moment he first saw her feeding his son, realizing that it had been a turning point not just for his child, but for her, and for everyone she would eventually help. One day, they organized a special event to celebrate the impact of the programs she had created. Families, children, and community members gathered to express their gratitude. She listened as people shared stories of how her efforts had changed their lives, and she felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The smiles, laughter, and heartfelt thanks were a reminder that her work was making a tangible difference, and that the ripple of kindness she had started years ago had grown far beyond what she could have imagined. Through it all, she never lost sight of what mattered most, helping others. She remained approachable, kind, and willing to listen. She spent time with families, offered guidance to staff, and encouraged children to dream big. She reminded herself that every small act of care could grow into something much larger, and that by staying true to her values, she could continue to make a meaningful impact. As she looked back on her journey, she realized that life had a way of rewarding those who acted with kindness, courage, and integrity. Her story was not about wealth, fame, or status. It was about compassion, patience, and the willingness to step forward when someone needed help. It was about seeing possibilities where others saw obstacles, and about creating hope where others had given up. The billionaire father, watching her work, felt a deep sense of pride. He had given her an opportunity, but she had transformed it into something extraordinary. She had not only changed her own life, but she had also changed the lives of countless others. Her journey was a testament to the power of kindness, the importance of believing in someone's potential, and the extraordinary things that can happen when one person decides to make a difference. Even as her life transformed, she remained humble. She continued to remember the small diner, the simple acts of kindness, and the lessons she had learned along the way. She understood that success was not about recognition, but about the lives touched, the hope restored, and the positive change created. And she knew that as long as she remained true to herself, she could continue to make a difference for years to come. Her story became an inspiration for many. People talked about how a single act of kindness, feeding a small boy struggling with his meal, had set off a chain of events that changed lives. They marveled at how someone from humble beginnings could rise to create such meaningful impact. And they were reminded that greatness is not measured by wealth, but by heart, courage, and compassion. In the end, she found fulfillment not in recognition or accolades, but in the quiet moments of connection, the smiles of children, the gratitude of families, and the knowledge that her efforts were making the world a better place. She understood that life's true rewards come from service, empathy, and the courage to act when it matters most. And so her journey continued, filled with purpose, hope, and compassion. She had transformed her life, helped countless others, and shown that one person's kindness can indeed change the world. From the small diner where it all began to the thriving programs she now led, her story was a reminder that true impact comes from the heart, and that even the smallest acts of care can create ripples that last a lifetime.